Welcome to Hidden Horizons, where we uncover the most fascinating and overlooked tales from world history. Here, every story is told with calm narration, inviting you to step quietly into worlds both near and forgotten. If you find these journeys enlightening or comforting, remember to like and subscribe. It truly helps us continue sharing history's hidden gems with you. In this video, we journey into the heart of ancient Japan, an island civilization shaped by deep isolation. You'll discover how rugged landscapes and swirling mists gave rise to a culture unique in belief, order, and spirit. Settle in as we explore how Japan's geography forged a world apart, inviting mystery and reflection at every turn. Chapter 1. Beyond the Mist. An enigmatic land emerges. Long ago, the islands of Japan drifted quietly at the edge of the known world. Veiled in silvery mist and wrapped in the embrace of churning seas, these lands seemed removed from time itself. The mountains stood like ancient guardians, keeping the secrets of an unfolding civilization sheltered from distant shores. Across endless waves, the distant whispers of mainland Asia faded into silence as ancient Japan carved out its own existence. Here, isolation wasn't just a feature of geography. It became a cradle for traditions that would flourish undisturbed. The sound of rain on mossy stone, the rustle of bamboo in the highlands. These rhythms shaped lives for generations, nurturing a culture untouched by outside hands. The bounds of sea and mountain made Japan a world apart. Travelers who glimpsed its shores saw a land forever drifting between reality and legend. White mist curled atop volcanic peaks while deep forests echoed with birdsong and ancient spirits. In this place of solitude, myths grew strong, binding people to earth, sky, and the mysterious unfolding of seasons. Through the ages, Japan's seclusion became both protector and storyteller. The archipelago's coastlines kept invaders at bay, but also kept its wonders hidden. Cliffs rose sharply above crashing waves. Villages clung to valleys where sunlight lingered softly. Here, families told tales of gods and ancestors, shaping a quiet pride in the uniqueness of their green and stony world. In the low dawn light, fishermen set sail into fog as thick as old secrets. Theirs was a daily crossing between what could be seen and what lay hidden. Inland, farmers shaped terraces along mountain slopes, their work as much a part of the landscape as the rivers they followed. Each task was woven into a cycle as old as the islands themselves. Natural barriers did more than foster seclusion. They guided imagination. Isolated by distance and daunting terrain, people learned to read the world with patient eyes. Legends whispered in pine forests, while shimmering lakes mirrored the changing sky. For those who listened, the land itself became a storyteller, revealing truth hidden in stone and shadow. Sea mists and storm-tossed waves left ancient travellers guessing at what lay beyond the horizon. To those within, the world felt infinite, wrapped in drifting clouds. This border between sea and sky wasn't just a barrier right, was a mirror reflecting dreams, worries, and hopes of a people who called these enigmatic islands home. As this chapter unfolds, we invite you to wander those misty mountain paths in your mind, to listen as old winds carry stories of beginnings. Ancient Japan was not just a land defined by distance. It was shaped by the poetry of its solitude, where history thickened quietly, waiting for wanderers like you to finally listen. Chapter 2. The Watchful Mountains. Nature as Guardian. Across Japan, vast mountain ranges rise quietly, draped in lingering mist and ancient trees. These natural fortresses sculpted early life, marking clear boundaries between regions, villages, and valleys. In their protective embrace, communities learned self-reliance, adapting customs and beliefs for generations. As you listen, imagine the silent peaks looking down, their patience shaping the quiet rhythm. Chapter 2. The towering mountains of Japan were more than just landmarks. They acted as protective barriers for the early people living there. Dense forests blanketed the slopes, muffling sounds and making travel difficult, which created secluded corners where traditions quietly flourished. This natural separation nurtured a sense of inwardness, inspiring stories, art, and beliefs that grew isolated and distinct from outside influence. Nestled within these valleys, ancient villagers felt both cradled and challenged by the wilderness. The mountains stood as quiet guardians, filtering invasions and preserving peace, but also demanding respect through harsh winters and shifting terrain. In these conditions, communities drew close, forging strong ties and shared rituals that felt as timeless as the peaks rising above them. In the shadow of these silent mountains, early Japanese culture became steeped in reflection and reverence for nature. Myths and legends sprang from swirling mountain mists, carried by the wind from generation to generation. These landscapes became sacred, shaping shrines among twisted roots and temples on mountain ledges, blending the natural with the spiritual in everyday life. Isolation fostered not only protection but also mystique. From the low valleys to the highest ridges, whispers of the unknown passed between neighbours who rarely travelled beyond their own forests. This quiet separation sharpened imagination, giving rise to tales of spirits, hidden realms, and powerful guardians who watched over every clearing and winding path. Villagers adapted uniquely to their environments, their lifestyles shaped by the land's embrace. Customs, dialects, and clothing evolved differently from valley to valley, each tucked quietly beneath mountain walls. Trade was challenging, so communities became fiercely self-reliant, relying on rivers, gardens, and wild forests for sustenance, while the tall peaks watched over in silent vigilance. Moving through the dense forests was a test of endurance and resourcefulness. Footpaths wound between ancient cedar trees, roots undulating like secret veins just beneath the surface. For centuries, travellers followed these hidden trails, guided by birdsong and the scent of moss, each journey both a physical and spiritual passage between the familiar and the unknown. The ever-present mist gave the highlands an air of secrecy, softening the harsh outlines of the world. Early inhabitants learned to read the subtle signs in dew, wind, and shifting shadows, sensing meaning and warning in every natural change. This close bond with the landscape encouraged a patient, attentive way of life that moved gently with the seasons and the land's moods. Life surrounded by these majestic guardians encouraged deep reflection. People would pause by rushing streams or sit quietly beneath ancient pines, finding wisdom in sound and silence. This meditative connection with nature seeped into beliefs, shaping the early roots of Shinto, where everything rock, tree, and river was alive with spirit and worthy of respect. As centuries passed, the watchful mountains remained steadfast, preserving a world both separate and strangely attuned to nature. Through hardship and isolation, a people and culture unfolded done that looked inward for meaning and found inspiration written in every stone and shade of green. In these landscapes, history whispered quietly, safe under the guardianship of the silent peaks. Chapter 3. Life forged in solitude. Early settlements. The mists part to reveal early Japanese villages nestled between emerald rivers, brooding volcanoes, and endless forests. Here, small communities learned to survive with little contact from the outside world. Each settlement became a sanctuary, shaped by the rhythms of wind and mountain. Surrounded by untamed nature, these people honed quiet traditions and resilient ways of life, laying the foundations for a truly unique civilization. Villagers depended on the land and each other. Their lives spun from moments of togetherness and challenging solitude. Early mornings brought the sounds of flowing water, footsteps on earth, and the distant call of birds through misty trees. Each tool, whether a sturdy wooden plough or a woven basket, was crafted with ingenuity, reflecting a deep respect for the resources that surrounded them. Over time, simple tasks became rituals, new skills. By the glow of firelight, stories circled through the air, binding generations with legends of spirits, heroes, and the wisdom of the mountains. These tales reflected a profound connection to both ancestors and the land itself. Nature's unpredictable moods, a river in flood, a rumbling mountain, or a sudden snowfall, shaped customs and kept communities alert. Each day was a lesson in patience and adaptation, turning hardship into the seeds of a rich. Though humble, these settlements grew innovative. Their diets included rice from terraced paddies, fish from clear streams, and roots dug from ancient earth. Tools carved from bone and wood made daily life possible, while clothes were woven from plant fibers gathered nearby. Yet there was art in their resourcefulness, intricate patterns pressed into clay, simple melodies hummed at dusk, and gestures of gratitude performed at each meal. Isolation fostered both necessity and beauty in their creation. Living in scattered hamlets, villagers relied on close bonds. Together, they raised thatched roofs, shared harvests, and faced the raw power of nature. Cooperation was not just practical, it was vital for survival. Ceremonies marked the turning of seasons, uniting people as they prayed for good fortune and honoured the spirits believed to inhabit rock, tree, and stream. These rituals, born of solitude and reverence, fostered a web of trust and mutual care. In solitude, life could be harsh. Storms swept away crops, earthquakes cracked the ground, and hunger sometimes lingered. Yet these trials tested and tempered the spirit, forging communities where resilience was prized above all else. When disaster struck, neighbours gathered to rebuild what was lost. This unity in adversity shaped a culture that revered endurance, persistence, and the small joys of shared success, no matter how fleeting. Solitude and struggle, side by side, defined these people. Over time, customs took root. Special festivals honoured shifting skies, promising a good harvest or safe passage through winter's chill. Elders taught children the silent signs of the forest, how to follow animal tracks, when to plant and reap, where to find water in a thicket. Written language was yet to arrive, but memory and repetition kept knowledge alive. Each lesson learned in solitude, each secret of the land, became another thread in the tapestry of village life. The natural world was not just a backdrop, but a guiding force. Mountains inspired awe, rivers offered life and danger, forests concealed both shelter and the unknown. To survive, villagers shaped their beliefs around these elements, seeing spirits in every breeze and possibility in every hardship. Respect for the land flowed through daily existence, present in every prayer, every boundary stone, every moment of silent gratitude. This spirit, as villagers slowly spread, their customs diverged. Geography offered new challenges. A volcano's shadow demanded caution, while a distant coast inspired dreams of fish-rich waters. Over years, these variations formed the earliest seeds of regional identity. Yet the shared experience of isolation tied all these communities together. Paths between villages wound through dense, misty forests, travelled by traders and storytellers, who carried news, goods, and tales that wove a subtle life in these early settlements shaped not simply survival, but meaning. Solitude bred resilience, the land inspired art, reverence, and ritual. These quiet beginnings set the stage for centuries of cultural growth. With each passing generation, the isolated heart of Japan beat stronger, forging identity and tradition that would echo long after the villages vanished. Out of solitude, a civilization was born, uniquely attuned to the gifts and trials of its land and history. Chapter 4. The Spirit in the Stone. Belief born from isolation. In the remote landscapes of ancient Japan, where mountains divided the land and seas closed the world off from outsiders, people found meaning within their surroundings. Stones, rivers, and twisted trees became sacred, seen as vessels for the spirits known as kami. In this chapter, we witness how spiritual traditions were shaped, not by outside contact, but by the quiet power of solitude. Cultural beliefs did not grow in bustling cities, but in silence, among the whispering pines and ancient boulders. Isolation became the crucible in which spirituality formed. The Japanese began to sense a divine presence within every element of their environment. Nature itself was alive. Every hill, stream, and stone shimmered with invisible energy, watched over by ancestral spirits whose presence brought meaning and comfort to the earliest settlers, At the heart of their evolving beliefs stood the kami unseen spirits thought to inhabit extraordinary features of the landscape. These spirits could be gentle or fierce, gentle as a summer breeze or powerful as a thunderstorm. Ancient people created small shrines from wood and stone to mark places where the kami were believed strongest. Visiting these sites, families whispered prayers and left offerings, weaving spirituality into daily routines and ordinary moments of life. Step by step, the people's connection with their land deepened. The mountains became the silent guardians of villages. Mist-shrouded forests seemed to breathe with the presence of lost ancestors. Rituals developed to honor these spirits often at dawn, when the valley filled with white fog and the world felt suspended between heaven and earth. These daily acts were not grand ceremonies, but simple gestures of respect, gratitude, and protection. As generations passed, reverence for nature became inseparable from Japanese identity. Seasonal festivals emerged to celebrate the changing face of the land and to thank the kami for good harvests, healthy children, and safe travels. Even in moments of hardship, villagers turned to their sacred sites, believing that their ancestors and the spirits of the mountains would lend strength, healing, and guidance along life's uncertain paths. Isolated from distant empires, ancient Japan's worldview crystallized into something unique. Unlike societies governed by written doctrines, these beliefs grew from observation, intuition, and storytelling. Every stone stacked upon a shrine, every whispered prayer, every legend passed down at the fireside, became part of an invisible tapestry. This blend of nature, mystery, and ancestry offered comfort in the midst of loneliness and created shrines multiplied, sometimes tiny markers beside waterfalls or looming torii gates at the edge of forests. They stood as the point of contact between the human world and the realm of spirits. Travelers paused here to clear their minds, purify their hands, and open their hearts to guidance. Over time, the world outside faded even further from memory, while the stories and rituals rooted themselves more firmly in the soil of the homeland. The landscape itself became a sacred text, read by those who walked its winding paths. A mossy rock might hold the memory of an ancient event. A gnarled pine could shelter the spirit of a wise ancestor. People learned to listen for subtle signs of shift in the wind, a sudden bird song believing these were quiet messages from beyond. In their eyes, the world was alive with wonders that could not be seen, but always felt. Through isolation, the Japanese honed a special way of seeing, one that found beauty in silence and reverence in solitude. Rather than reaching outward, their spirituality looked inward, toward the heart of things. This perspective shaped the culture's art, poetry, and sense of balance. Even today, echoes of those distant centuries linger in rituals, gardens, and the careful way each season is greeted and cherished. In the end, it was not riches or conquest, but quiet belief that anchored ancient Japanese society. The spirit in the stone, the breath of the mountain, and the whisper of ancestors guided their daily lives. Born from seclusion, this worldview fostered a lasting sense of harmony with nature, with the past, and with the mysterious forces woven through every corner of the isolated land. The story of belief continues. Chapter 5. Closed Doors, Hidden Worlds. The Barriers to Exchange. In an era cloaked in mystery and caution, Japan's rulers made a profound choice. They closed their borders to the world beyond, hoping to shelter their lands from unsettling change. As the tides of global exchange swelled elsewhere, Japan reinforced barriers of both wood and law, crafting an insular realm that would shape the soul of a nation for centuries. Within this secluded world, the concept of outside influence became both a threat and a curiosity. The coastline stood guarded, harbours locked and watched, foreign ships turned away or met with wary negotiation. What wonders lay beyond these shores was less enticing than the resolve to preserve an enduring way of life. A calm in the storm of shifting empires and uncertain alliances just across the distant sea. Under Tokugawa rule, the Sakoku edict formalized separation. Few could leave, fewer still could enter. The penalties for defiance were severe. Yet behind each barrier was not just fear, but an intention to nurture the heart of Japan's traditions. Rituals, crafts, and language flourished, unchanged by foreign hands. Hidden worlds were cultivated within, even as the outside world continued on paths unknown to those inside. With time, life settled into rhythms undisturbed by foreign merchants or missionaries. Rice was planted to familiar songs, festivals unfolded in the same ancient patterns, and knowledge passed quietly from teacher to student. There was an inward focus, a slow-burning sense of safety in repetition, and a trust that keeping distant lands at bay would hold unwanted chaos at the gates. The outside world faded to rumour-whispered, seldom seen. Still, curiosity lingers in every heart of those behind closed doors. Some dared to question the wisdom of seclusion, their thoughts floating like autumn leaves across private courtyards. Was the world outside truly so dangerous, or might it hold new wisdom? These silent speculations grew in the collective mind, a gentle undercurrent beneath the tranquil surface crafted by vigilant rulers and watchful sentries. Despite strict laws, tiny exchanges endured. Dutch traders at Dejimaya Single, Artificial Island, were granted brief, controlled contact. Books, medicines, and quietly traded news crept through cracks in the barriers. Though the authorities watched closely, threads of curiosity connected hidden Japan with the distant world, weaving a fragile link between what was known and all that was kept away. For ordinary people, glimpses of foreign things, fragments of porcelain, a coin, or the retold story of a distant ship became objects of wonder and speculation. These relics, rare and mysterious, hinted at unseen worlds. They fostered quiet dreams, maybe even doubts. What might life be like across the sea, in lands where customs and faces differed? The questions lingered, unanswered, behind shuttered windows and stone walls. Isolation forged identity. By closing its doors, Japan created room for its art, beliefs, and customs to evolve undisturbed. This period gifted the world enduring masterpiece haiku poetry as crisp as mountain air, lacquerware polished to a mirror gleam, serene gardens harmonious with the seasons. Each creation bore the mark of a society looking inward, drawing from deep wells of tradition rather than foreign streams. Yet, even well-built barriers eventually show cracks, and the world just beyond can grow impossible to ignore. As decades quietly passed, shadows lengthened over the familiar ways, and a subtle restlessness began to pulse beneath the smooth surface of daily life. The decision to remain apart and so certain became less absolute, as the future's quiet call grew a little louder with each passing season. In the shadow of closed gates, Japan's hidden worlds continued to turn, carrying hopes, doubts, and whispered stories into yet another day. The great question of what may come from opening the doors lingered, unspoken, as old certainties began to feel less solid beneath the surface. The chapter of seclusion was nearly at its end, and the winds of change brushed gently against the ancient walls. Chapter 6. A World Apart. The growth of unique arts and rituals. As the rest of the world bustled with changing tides and new connections, Japan remained quietly apart. This solitude was not empty. It became a fertile ground where creativity and tradition could flourish. Within the embrace of mountains and shoreline, a tapestry of customs and aesthetic sensibilities began to unfold. Isolated from outside influence, Japanese artisans and thinkers moved inward, drawing their inspiration from nature and the rhythms of daily life. With patience and devotion, practices grew into disciplines. Every act could become an art, every gesture part of a larger story. From the delicate grind of tea leaves to the solemn footfall on a no stage, craftsmanship and mindfulness became intertwined with the Japanese spirit. Ceremony ascended into artistry. Nowhere was this more evident than in the way of tea, a ritual where simplicity and precision met. Each motion held meaning. Silence became a companion. Guests were welcomed with bowls of matcha, as much for the peace it brought as for the drink itself. In these quiet gatherings, the isolation of the land nurtured a sense of calm communion. No theatre emerged as another symbol of introspective artistry. Masked actors moved across the stage with minimal gestures, embodying centuries of tradition in every subtle motion. The performances were sparse, yet deeply profound. Mystery pulsed beneath the surface, inviting the audience into reflection and contemplation. The stories told were often old, but felt timeless in their universal emotions of desire, sorrow, and yearning. Ritual and restraint touched every corner of life. Even the pottery crafted in rural kiln villages bore the imprint of isolation. Artisans perfected their technique over years, creating ceramics that balanced beauty with utility. Their designs echoed the natural world, the rough texture of clay, the misty grey of a distant mountain, and the unpredictable crackle of a kiln's fire, each vessel telling its own quiet story. The isolation also gave rise to the art of kintsugi, the golden repair. Broken pottery was not thrown away, but lovingly mended with lacquer mixed with precious metals, each fracture highlighted, not hidden. In this way, imperfection was honoured, and old objects gained new meaning. This practice, born from solitude, turned repair into an act of beauty and offered a lesson in embracing the transient nature of life. In gardens and ink paintings, the aesthetics of simplicity and fleeting beauty were cherished. Rocks and water were placed with intention. Blank space on a scroll carried as much weight as the inked figures. These expressions reflected a worldview mindful of impermanence and subtlety. In a world apart, Japanese culture celebrated the understated, finding poetry in things left unsaid, and beauty in moments easily missed. As foreign ideas slept beyond silent borders, Japanese poetry found voice in the form of haiku and waka. These verses were brief, but rich in imagery, a few words evoking entire landscapes or seasons. Poets, withdrawn from worldly noise, captured the fleeting brilliance of a plum blossom or the hush of first snow. In this quiet isolation, language itself became an art of suggestion and depth. Religious rituals and seasonal festivals became even more significant, weaving communities together in cycles of anticipation and remembrance. Shinto and Buddhist ceremonies, illuminated by lanterns and chanting, offered solace and structure. Each ritual echoed the rhythms of earth and sky, reminding isolated villagers of their place within a greater order. In honoring gods and ancestors, people found connection despite the world's distance. Through these arts and rituals, isolation did not breed emptiness, but instead gave rise to an inward richness. Generation after generation, Japanese creators channeled solitude into works that still whisper through time. Their traditions and crafts, born in quiet corners, became enduring testaments to a civilization's resilience, shaping identity, anchoring communities, and allowing beauty to flourish in a world apart. Chapter 7. The Social Order of Solitude. Rules in a Restricted Realm. In the hush of ancient Japan's isolation, society itself became a delicate balance, upheld by invisible borders. Through seasons of solitude, a hierarchy emerged, not through conquest, but by shared duty and tradition. In this chapter, we explore how centuries of distance from the outside world gave rise to an intricate web of roles, each bound to a silent code. The structure was precise. At the pinnacle stood the samurai, guardians sworn to codes of loyalty and honor. Below them were artisans, shaping beauty from raw earth and metal creators whose skills wove the aesthetic soul of their land. Farmers, the backbone of the realm, shaped the landscape itself, nurturing rice paddies and ensuring survival. Merchants, although vital, navigated the edges, handling goods yet often looked upon with cautious respect. Each group had a place, and rules were strict, not merely written, but etched through ritual and repetition. A shared set of values pulsed beneath the surface, reverence for lineage, humility, and an unspoken understanding of one's station. Even amid solitude, these codes served as both guide and guardrail, keeping disorder at bay, allowing harmony to blossom within society's secluded walls. Isolation heightened introspection rules became more than laws. They became ways of seeing, guiding every interaction, meal and greeting. Samurai learned the art of restraint, masters of both sword and silence. Artisans perfected their craft generation after generation. Farmers bowed to the seasons while merchants watched and waited for chance, their quiet patience reflecting the spirit of the restricted realm they called home. Underneath these customs was a sense of belonging, but also of distance. The very rules that bound people together set them apart. It was rare for a farmer's child to become a samurai, or for a merchant to shed the weight of suspicion. Every layer was necessarily woven tight, as silent agreements echoed across fields and through wooden corridors, echoing the shared determination to preserve the sense of order. Yet, even in separation, moments of unity appeared. Seasonal festivals, with vibrant banners and the promise of renewal, allowed all walks to mingle, if just for a night. These gatherings reminded even the most isolated that they were part of a living, breathing whole, a society whose heartbeat depended on every role, no matter how humble or lofty their position within the secluded social order. Rituals flowed through daily life, both grand and minute. Tea ceremonies carried meaning beyond taste, representing harmony and quiet respect. Harvest celebrations blended duty with joy. Observing etiquette, whether accepting a bowl of rice or addressing a lord, became an art. Every gesture, every pause reinforced the rules of living together, making tradition not a burden but a shield against chaos and uncertainty. The codes were not merely for show. Breaking them carried the risk of shame or even banishment. Reputation was currency, honor, an invisible thread binding individuals to the collective. When temptation or hardship struck, people recalled the quiet dignity of those before them, their endurance in the face of storms and scarcity. In the dance of isolation, every step was watched, remembered, and quietly admired. As night descended over villages and castles, one could sense the presence of these rules in the hush between words or in the silent bow before a meal. The boundaries of solitude grew less like walls and more like carefully tended gardens. Every member of society was both root and flower, supporting the wholeness of the realm, a living testament to how isolation's constraints could nurture both individuality and unity in equal measure. In this intricate world, the social order was more than law. It was identity. Through isolation, each person was given a place and a purpose, making the remote realm both fortress and family. The codes, passed gently from generation to generation, endured seasons of peace and hardship, alike a testament to the resilience of a society shaped as much by distance as devotion to ancient ways. Chapter 8. Echoes Across the Water. Moments of fragile contact. Beneath the shroud of isolation, Japan's shores were not entirely impervious. Occasionally, fortune or fate delivered outsiders to these guarded coasts. A battered ship might wash up, or clouds would part for a daring merchant's glimpse into forbidden lands. Each unexpected arrival sent ripples through villages, igniting speculation and apprehension. For these moments, the arrival of strangers stirred a storm of emotions, curiosity, and fear mingled amid whispers. Some saw the foreigners as harbingers of chaos, while others wondered what distant lands and customs they might represent. Stories passed quietly through markets and inns about shipwrecked sailors, clutching foreign charms and languages none could understand. In these brief encounters, the familiar fabric of daily life felt thinner, as if any moment could bring change from beyond the horizon. Rare diplomats, carefully selected and shadowed, were granted measured audiences with officials. Their presence was both a spectacle and a warning, a dance of veiled intentions. The hosts watched every gesture, every word, mindful of maintaining Japan's boundaries. To outsiders, these parleying moments were glimpses of a closed world, mysterious and disciplined. Each exchange left behind questions that lingered long after the visit. Sometimes, forbidden exchanges flourished below the official gaze. Brave merchants and fishermen, risking much, met in hidden coves or shadowy harbours. Goods changed hand silk, spices, trinkets, while rumours of distant courts and inventions made their way home. These secret acts helped nourish curiosity about the wider world, though such actions could lead to suspicion and punishment if discovered. The lines between discovery and danger were faint and easily crossed in the pursuit of knowledge, yet not all contacts were so clandestine. Each encounter, be it forced or meticulously arranged, tested the resilience of tradition. Some officials believed that any outside touch threatened the delicate stability they guarded. Still, behind closed doors, maps were quietly drawn and objects studied, fostering a cautious curiosity. Across gardens and narrow streets, quiet wonder and unease mingled in the air. The lasting echo of each faint stories of these rare encounters soon grew into local legends. Children gathered by evening light, listening to tales of blue-eyed sailors rescued from storms, or shimmering gifts from mysterious strangers locked away in temple vaults. Through each retelling, the foreign became both more marvellous and more monstrous, shaped by hopes and fears. Echoes of these fleeting contacts etched themselves into the memory of the villagers, strengthening the mystique of the world that dwelled just out of sight, Some of the shipwrecked sailors were taken in, quietly given shelter far from the wary eyes of officials. For those welcomed, every gesture became a careful negotiation and exchange of stories by lantern light, learning basic words and sharing simple meals. There was always a trembling line between kindness and suspicion. For both visitor and host, the experience was fleeting yet transformative, leaving behind traces of empathy and questions about distant lives. Diplomatic exchanges, though orchestrated and formal, often yielded moments of genuine astonishment. A gift of strange paper or colourful cloth might inspire awe or suspicion. Officials weighed each item, mindful of symbolic meanings. The conversations were measured and wary, yet sometimes a shared glance or quiet word revealed underlying curiosity. In those brief, unguarded moments, a bridge was built, however, fragile across the void of difference, hinting at with every passing decade, these rare contacts accumulated, threading invisible ties between the island and the world beyond. Though few and fleeting, they revealed how isolation was never truly complete. Curiosity tugged at the edges of restriction, inspiring covert learning, small acts of trust, or cautious adaptation. Each encounter left an imprint, a foreign phrase woven into conversation, a new tool quietly adopted, reminder that even behind closed borders, change. As the chapter of isolation neared its end, echoes of those long-ago contacts lingered in memory and custom. What had begun as tremors of fear or fascination became part of the shared fabric of Japanese life. The people soon faced a world that was pressing ever closer, but they carried with them these remnant stories, objects, and a deepened sense of intrigue. In every heart remained the memory of fragile contact, binding past and future through the endless tide, binding past and future through the endless tides. Chapter 9. Change on the Horizon. The world approaches. Beyond the tranquil coasts, unfamiliar sails now punctuate the mist. For centuries, ancient Japan existed inwardly, time marked by the ebb of ritual and tradition. But as distant nations draw near, isolation begins to falter. The world beyond whispers possibility and unrest, its distant echoes stirring both uncertainty and subdued hope within quiet villages and busy ports. Foreign ships ride the waves, their silhouettes etched against early dawn. Word spreads from the coast. Curiosity mixes with unease, for these arrivals carry technologies and goods unseen before. The serene flow of life begins to shift as elders recall stories of seclusion, and the young quietly imagine what this change might bring. With each passing day, the outside world draws closer, its influence arriving like a hush before a storm. At first, the encounters are cautious, wary glances exchanged at the shoreline, uncertain gestures bridging worlds apart. Diplomats and merchants step onto ancient soil, bearing trinkets, wonders, and intentions clouded with mystery. Their manner and speech seem strange, their customs unfamiliar to villagers anchored in tradition. Tension lingers in the air, for with these new visitors arrives a sense that life's steady cadence may never be the same again. Within temple walls and grand estates, conversations grow hushed and urgent. What does it mean for tradition if the outside world's knowledge flows freely into these sacred lands? Some see threat. Others promise the ancient guardians of order weigh progress against the comfort of routine. Silent prayers rise for wisdom as elders ponder the future, knowing their choices might reshape the world their ancestors once struggled to preserve. Children gather at the edges of bustling marketplaces, eyes wide with wonder at metal tools and fabrics dyed in strange colours. The tantalizing glimpse of foreign music stirs curiosity, a melody entirely unfamiliar to ears that once only knew the lull of bamboo flutes and drum beats. Some brave souls approach the newcomers, exchanging hesitant words, forging the first fragile threads of connection between isolated worlds. Night falls, but restless dreams follow. Throughout the countryside and within city gates, people sense the old barriers yielding, like mist giving way to sunlight. The moon shines on faces filled with both apprehension and yearning, a delicate balance of vulnerability and quiet courage. Stories are whispered among family members as they try to imagine what a future shaped by choice, not only by circumstance, might look like. Tensions simmer beneath the calm surface. Not everyone welcomes these changes. Some retreat deeper into their traditions, seeking comfort in the familiar. Elders caution against losing what has defined their people for generations. Yet, beneath the surface, a subtle hope grow could. These new encounters spark renewal, or will they simply erode what was once wholly their own? Each day poses new questions. On the windswept harbours, fishermen notice unfamiliar tools, more efficient, promising larger catches. Farmers see seeds and implements that hint at abundance. Yet these gifts come weighed with invisible costs. To accept them means opening doors long bolted shut. The people listen for guidance how to embrace the promise without surrendering the soul of their culture. Every act of exchange becomes a quiet act of trust and risk. Scholars pore over foreign texts and diagrams by candlelight, their quiet chambers now illuminated by fresh ideas. In their notes, ancient scripts mingle with borrowed words, evidence that the world is in motion. Some embrace these evolving ideas with excitement, others with trepidation. The line between loss and enrichment blurs, for no one yet knows will these influences strengthen their legacy, or scattered pieces of it to the wind. As dawn breaks once more, temples stand beside newly built docks, symbols of both continuity and change. Though uncertainty governs the days ahead, a gentle hope stirs the promise that what lies beyond the horizon might blend with what has always been valued here. Old songs will mingle with new voices. In the end, the world's approach signals not an end, but the unfolding of a new story, still mysterious, still quietly unfolding. Chapter 10. In the stillness, a legacy remains. The tale of Japan's isolation gently comes to its end, leaving us with echoes that linger in the quiet heart of the country. Even now, as the tides of change lap steadily against its shores, something remarkably ancient remains within temples, traditions, and serene landscapes. Let us wander together through these still places and consider what was preserved wonders that silence could never erase. Within each ceremony and festival, there are threads of solitude, woven carefully during centuries of separation from the world beyond the sea. Ancient dances, whispered prayers, the brushwork of calligraphy all flourish because they grew in sheltered soil, untouched by hurried footsteps from foreign lands. Today these customs reveal a distinct rhythm, a gentle pulse that carries memories of a world long insular, yet never stagnant. The artistry of Japan, from lacquered wood to flowing kimono silk, reflects this legacy of stillness. Quiet villages hold techniques passed down for hundreds of years, shapes and patterns shaped by isolated hands. In the silence, imagination soared unfettered by outside influence. What endured is more than material beauty. It is the enduring spirit of a people who learned to find meaning and greatness in quiet perseverance. At the heart of this legacy lies a belief in harmonious understanding that every element, whether crafted or natural, belongs within the broader fabric of existence. There is humility in these traditions, a sense of the self set gently beside mountains, rivers, and forests. In no other place does nature's song so clearly merge with song of the soul. The world outside may rush, but here the silence still speaks. Many visitors are drawn to Japan by its bustling cities, yet it is often the quieter corners, the mossy path in a temple garden, or the fading call of a shrine bell that leave the most lasting impression. These moments are remnants of an era defined not by isolation alone, but by mindful attention to every detail, every gesture. Solitude, once a necessity, has become a source of profound beauty and reflection. Though the centuries of solitude have given way to a modern connected world, Japan's distinctive customs continue to shape its daily rhythms. Tea ceremonies invite quiet contemplation, preserving an ancient grace. Festivals, both vibrant and solemn still, echo the joys and struggles of ancestors who lived in an island almost entirely apart. Here, memory does not merely linger, it breathes, woven into rituals and celebrations. Isolation, once a wall, gradually became a canvas on which Japan painted its dreams and fears. A unique sense of order and mutual respect grew from those desa balance between independence and belonging that can still be glimpsed in society's careful etiquette. Beneath every bow and quiet smile lies a story written in solitude, yet shaped by the wisdom of many generations. Landscapes, too, remember the past. The stillness of ancient forests, the quiet glow of temples at twilight, and the snow resting softly on distant mountains hold the memory of Japan's solitary centuries. These places offer a refuge from modern noise, inviting reflection and gentle wonder. Each scene is both a picture of the present and a silent witness to centuries spent exploring the world within, rather than beyond. As the world presses in closer every year, Japan continues to cherish what grew during its long retreat from the outside. The legacy is visible not just in objects or ceremonies, but in the thoughtful way many move through life, listening, observing, honoring the spaces between words and moments. In this there is an invitation to sit quietly, to learn from the past, and to carry forward its wisdom into whatever the future may bring. And so, our journey through Japan's solitary history finds its gentle close not as an ending, but as an ongoing song. In the stillness remain treasures of tradition, imagination, and a deep sense of belonging to the land. Let this legacy remind us that sometimes the greatest creations and profoundest understandings are born in quiet spaces, and the echoes of isolation can shape a people for all time.